Okay, so we're going to cover two content creators today. We're going to start with Khadija. As you guys know, we watch them. They're a great content creator, and they are covering the 4B movement that's hitting the States. We've covered the 4B movement in the past with Korea, but we want to do it again because American women are also having a reaction. Now, I just want to preface for this channel, since we're so queer friendly and LGBT friendly and gender fluid friendly, that AFAB, femme people, women, you know, if the world is going to see you as a woman, or see you as femme, then maybe this applies to you. I'm not sure if any men are sort of relating to the 4B movement, but this is centered around technically women. Though I have a feeling it's going to be centered more around, forgive me for saying so, cis straight women, question mark? Anybody, I don't know the details yet. So if that is true, then I just want to make sure this is an inclusive conversation for all people, because otherwise, why would I be reviewing this? Because I don't really identify as like a cis woman in that traditional sense. So like, it feels like this isn't about me, but it might be.
So remember, the 5th of November happened, and now the girlies are going celibate. So let's talk about it. Bonjour, hi. That was an oversimplification, but we all know Tuesday happened, Trump won, and as a result, everybody is terrified of a lot of things. If you are an immigrant, if you are a part of the Liga Ticket Committee, if you are a woman, you know, if you're in a minority group, you're a little concerned, a little bit. Not just because of Trump and the way he talks and all that stuff.
Just a heads up, Khadija uses they, them pronouns. I don't think they use the she pronouns, but I could be wrong.
But because if you know about Project 2025, you're like, girl, excuse me? And even if you're not in those marginalized groups, if you care about the education system and just America, you know. Either way, what's done is done. And as a result, a lot of the girlies are, you know, kind of playing the blame game. Everyone's tossing around whose fault is it, especially now that the exit polls are coming out. And something interesting that the exit polls are showing is that Trump gained a bit more traction with young men this go round compared to 2020. And, you know, these young men don't exist in a vacuum. They are out here every day, and some of them might be sleeping next to you.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Now, I will say, I've dated a lot of toxic people, male identified people. I've dated a lot of men in their trauma, a lot of men who say a lot of really bad shit. That was years ago, of course, many years ago. But I will say this, I have never dated a Republican. But of course I wouldn't. Why would I ever be with a Republican when all of my dating happened when I was in my 20s? Because my high school boyfriends and girlfriends were like queer or queer adjacent, so obviously. But they could have been gay Republicans, but I never dated a Republican. Okay. I don't even know if I've technically even had sex with one. I could have, and they didn't tell me, but I think I've dodged that bullet. You know what I'm saying? So is there a gold star? You know how gold star lesbians exist? Do we have like a gold star never Republican? I would really like a star for that. Thank you.
Ooh, dark thought, right? You can be sleeping next to a Trump voter? What? But here's the thing. Some of the ladies said, not me. Now, the 4B movement has been gaining a bit more traction on Le TikTok. Last night, I was like, I want to do a video about this. I went to my Googles and there were so many articles already coming out about it.
Yep.
So let's talk about it. Also, just so you know, I'm posting more videos like this on my second channel. It will be linked in the pinned comment below.
I did not, though. They had a second channel.
You can get merch from me here.
Ooh.
And I'm potentially starting a book club. I'll talk about all of that at the end of the video. So the 4B movement is a movement from South Korea that kind of gained its traction in 2016. You could say somewhat inspired by the Me Too movement. Again, these things don't exist in a vacuum though. And it's basically a movement about swearing off men. It's called the 4B movement because the words that they use actually start with a B, and
B is in Korean, and it's actually a Chinese character for saying not to do. So 4B means females do not want to have sex. They do not want to date Korean men. They do not want to marry, and they do not want to give birth.
The girlies are saying they're doing without heterosexual sex, dating men, heterosexual marriage, and childbirth, possessions and things. If you want to treat our bodies like the main priority and goal is that they can only have sex, be sexed, and give birth, then we're going to remove all of those options from you on the table. Let's see how you like it, in so many words. And this has gotten so wild that a few of the articles that I've read point out that Korea has for the first time a higher death rate than birth rate.
Ooh.
So might not be the only thing contributing to that, but listen. So you have this movement that's slowly gaining traction over the last couple of years online in this part of the world. And then the election happens and the girlies are realizing, oh, I could be dating men out here that would literally vote against my reproductive rights.
And I don't know if Khadijah's just going to show it, but there are TikToks going viral right now of men who say they lied to women about being Trump voters because they don't need to know that about them. And I think that's interesting. In some couples, you can date somebody who's the opposite of you. In some couples, because I'm open to the nuance, you could maybe make that work. I think it's a values difference. Like I couldn't. Now there was some conversation to be had, and I just want to tangent for a bit. There was a conversation that was had where Jesse Waters of Fox News, who's just one of the most unethical people on TV that I've ever seen in my life, he said something to the effect of like, if my wife voted for Kamala, it would be like, I think, grounds for divorce or something negative. And a lot of people were really upset with him over that. And I think the reason he said it was in a very demeaning and sort of sexist way. But I will say on the other side of it, it is important to recognize that I also feel the same way that I couldn't be with somebody who's a Trump voter. But I want to say the difference is that I wouldn't look at my partner like they were the spawn of Satan. I would just be shocked that we have such different values and somehow we ended up married. Like that's where the shock would come in, I think. But you know, chat says, Maiden's correcting me, he said it would be akin to cheating. Turns out he has cheated. Oh, of course he has, I'm sure. So, okay, so it's akin to cheating. I could see that in some ways, because I do believe in radical honesty. My partner and I practice radical honesty in our marriage. We share every thought and every idea we have about each other to one another, how we vote, he's Croatian, I'm American. But, like how we participate in politics, we share all those thoughts together. But I can see, and we don't do it because we're, in a trapped marriage. We do it because we just like love each other and love each other's brains. And I just think this is the most interesting human, and their experience is so interesting. And I just want to know everything about them because I just think they're lovely. And, they think I'm lovely. And so together we have just like this lovely little relationship where it's like positive and optimistic and loving and joyful. But when these people talk about their marriages, it sounds scary. Dangerous, like they're trapped. And I'm like, oh, that feels negative. So when Jesse Waters says it's akin to cheating, maybe it would be, right? But also coming from him doesn't mean a lot because he just says the most vile things ever. Now, I will say this, and I think it's important. There are going to be circumstances in which I am sure you could have a happy marriage with somebody who's politically opposite of you. I couldn't do it myself because I think values matter, but I could see why some people might end up that way. I don't think in this climate it makes that much sense as it could have before. There was a time when the Republican Party, not for very long, but maybe wasn't as, quote, bad as it is now, even though they've always, been pretty extremist on the traditional values. I could kind of see it, but now it would be hard for me to stomach. It would be very awkward. I mean, it's awkward when my girlfriends, not that I have any, who could vote for Trump. Like, I don't make new Trump voting friends. I try really hard not to make new friends that are bigoted or that are willing to vote for a rapist. So I try very, very hard to be conscientious of the choices that I'm making. But it is difficult and nobody's perfect, and I'm open to nuance, right? Obviously, a lot of my family are Trump voters. And a lot of them are, Middle Eastern people who are religious. So they vote for traditionalism because they're traditional. So I'm open to the nuance of it, but I think there's something here that we should keep in mind when we're dating. Values. This is why I say what's my first date question? I ask people on a first date to see if I should end the date then and there. What are you going to do if we have a trans child? That is a very easy way to end a first date because the transphobes will come out right away. The centrists will talk. I'll know exactly where they are. If they answer in a particular way, I'll be like, date's over. Because I need you to be 100% on board of gender affirming care for our child. Even if that doesn't mean surgery, it should mean gender affirming care, right? Clothing, name, expression, whatever that child needs to feel whole and safe in our household. They have to take precedent over us, right? And so again, it's a really good first date question because a lot of people are gonna have really strong reactions to that particular belief system, right? And by the way, a trans question is really good with anybody. It's even if you're dating like a person of color or a white person or anybody else, since so many people are transphobic still, you're probably going to run into more transphobes than not. So it's really easy to weed them out right away. Even other queer people, there are gay people that are transphobes, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to date an Ariel Scarcella. Like, that would be horrible. So like, even if you're on a date with a lesbian, you could run into like an Ariel Scarcella and like, you don't want to date that. You know what I mean? Okay, let's go back to the video.
Rights, or not vote at all, as in not even care about my reproductive rights. They would be willing to sleep with me, to have a child with me, to marry me, or to date me, or hook up, whatever, but they don't really give a about my rights and my autonomy and personhood as a woman. Yeah. No, thank you. I should say that there's already been, and I've talked about this a bit on this channel before, a growing number of people considering celibacy, considering just abstaining from dating because the bar is in hell and we're tired of going to hell and back just to, I don't know, go on.
Okay, I just want to comment on this idea of celibacy, not dating. So this is how I think about these conversations. And then, of course, I want to know how you think about them. There was a time in my life, I'll tell it in a story form. There was a time in my life where a friend and I were on a similar introspection journey. And around the same time, we kind of came to the realization that, you know, maybe life is just a reaction to a reaction to a reaction to a reaction to a reaction. And I wondered if you could get out of that loophole, the loop of just reacting. I was like, man, I don't want to just react my whole life. I want to actually just be the captain of my own ship. I want to be able to control my life without needing to always react. How do I do that? And my friend and I were like, okay, well, like, what do you think this means for all of society if they're always just reacting? How do we like make a more concerted effort to be in charge? And I think it stems from why you do what you do. And so for me, like, advocating for celibacy because men aren't qualifying as dating partners is, I think, not the best way to go about things. Because one, it centers men as the reason you're doing anything you're doing. So it's not your own values. Two, you're acting like you know every man in the world. And if you just mean cis men, maybe you're in a more complicated bubble. But even if you're just looking for cis men, and it depends on what you mean by a man as well. Because like, what is even a man? Right? But like, if you're looking in a specific bubble, it feels weird to say like, I'm not going to date. I'm going to be celibate. No more men. It's like, okay, you're discounting the fact that if you're straight, like your partner is out there. It's just like, don't make it about men. Make it about the individuals you're seeing, not them. And I get what you're saying, because men are kind of brought up in a certain world where they're trained to be a certain way. Just don't date the men that are culturally trained that way and who haven't deconstructed, right? I think it's right to feel apprehensive or concerned that the man you're dating is too much in the boy bubble. And I think you should pay attention to that, right? I'm going to correlate this to something that my Discord brought to my attention in a way I never thought about before, about my own partner. And you know, I always say my partner is a gamer, but you know, something that's unique about my partner in so many ways is they don't identify their ego as a gamer. You know, boys that identify as gamers, like, I don't know if you want to date those boys, but like my person doesn't, like their life isn't centered around their hobby. Their life isn't centered around their gender. Their life isn't centered around exterior things or interior things in that capacity the way that other people are. And so when you're dating a man whose whole identity is around being a man, you're dealing with a lot of internalized, or not internalized, but a lot of maybe misogyny, but also toxic masculinity. And then you're dealing with somebody who might not know themselves. So remember the chart that I showed you guys yesterday? When you're looking at yourself and who you are, if you're an individual who's only existing on how people perceive you, so woman, man, right? And you're not paying attention to who you are as a specific consciousness, then you're not having a deep enough relationship with yourself in order to express to who you are to your partner. And I think a lot of people live in a society and are individuals. And because they're individuals, the men you might be dating only know who they are based off who people tell them they are. You as a woman might only know who you are based off of how people tell you who you are. So this movement, though, can be comforting, I think is reactionary in nature. And so I don't recommend living your life as a reactionary. I recommend living your life for your consciousness, the relationship you have deeply with yourself. Even during lockdown, when I was going on my first dates over the internet, and I would ask people these questions, they're like, this feels like an interrogation. Look, You either pass the interrogation or you don't. But also, I'm neurodivergent queen. It's going to be like this forever. This is how I literally have conversations today with my partner. What do you mean by that? Answer. Well, what about this? Answer. Well, what about this? Answer. It's like the way I talk is very do. So the person I'm with has to understand that this first date isn't going to change once we get married. It's going to be this energy forever. Okay? This energy, I don't fake it on a first date. I don't show my best foot forward. I am just myself. And this is who you're going to come home to every day. So you better be prepared. And I think sometimes women, man, if you're an individual who's only knows yourself based off of how the world perceives you, then I think you're going to have maybe maybe you'll be drawn to this community more than somebody else. I feel like the 4B movement is for people. All these kinds of movements that are reactionary are for people that don't know who they are outside of who people perceive them to be, right? That's my opinion. So I think like we should pay attention to that. Now, you also have to be okay with being single. You have to be okay with being in a relationship with yourself in so many ways, not in a fake way, not in a, oh, I'm a girl boss, I did it way, like in a real way, like be so comfortable. That way you can wait patiently for the person that's so high compatibility with you that you don't care what their gender is. And I know for some people, gender is really important, but listen to me when I say this. Your high compatibility partner who comes into your life, they're going to be so perfect for you. You're not going to care about the things you think you care about. I don't know what that thing is going to be, but you're not going to care the way you think you care. Because you're going to want the person, the consciousness, the real them, not the body they inhabit, not the skin color they inhabit, not the gender they inhabit, but them. Maybe not that language, right? This is Brittany's language. Maybe, again, maybe not exactly my language, but it's going to be something that you're not thinking about. Chad says, I saw a woman on TikTok who was talking about how women should start leaving their used menstrual products on men's cars in the form of retaliation over this results of the election in relation to 4B. Ew, gross. Guys, please don't make men the center of your life by doing this. Gross.
On a date, it's a lot. Lately, the girlies are fed up. They're over the shit. We saw recently with the man versus bear argument, the amount of men that were like, I don't appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. And I even came to some of their defense because I was like, I get it to the extent of like, if you're a young man watching these videos, it must be disheartening. Yeah. It must feel be like, wow, everybody just think men suck. But then we also, and I said it in that video too, some people don't want to see it, man. We also got to acknowledge the why. Why do women feel fed up? Why are women tired? Why is there so much literature and language and media around women
And don't get me wrong, do not do emotional labor for men who cry in your arms just to keep doing the bad actions. Okay? And I know it's easier said than done. So many men have cried in my arms and I have, oh my God, look at them. They're being vulnerable. Look at them. They're actually being like honest with me. And that they go and do the same over and over again and never learn. Trust me when I say I have cuddled many a crying man and not one of them have made a difference in terms of like getting their together because all they want is the validation without doing any of the work. They don't want to change. They want to keep you in relationships for 5 to 10 to 20 years, promising a change that will never come. Whether you're dating them, you're friends with them, or they're your siblings. So meet them where they're at, validate their tears, and send them to therapy. And if they're not going to do the work, I'm open, but with boundaries. And maybe that means cutting off the friendship. Maybe that means moving on, but absolutely no more. Okay? No more. And I know it's hard. Trust me. Okay? It is very hard to be the person to break generational curses. Trust me, as somebody who like deals with this in her own life, it is an incredible burden. And sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I don't want to do it. And I just want to say, but I have to keep going. I really believe this because in this short time I have on earth, I might make a huge difference for my nieces and nephews. I might make a huge difference in people's lives by saying no more, not again. Okay. It's one thing for it to exist in this timeline, but it doesn't need to continue. And I know how hard it is. So meditate. Guys, this, the sunrise little meditate. Okay. This is our new meditation emoji. That's what I'm going to call it. Meditate, girls. And then understand why you're doing the fight. If it's about your values, stick to it. It is hard though. It is hard because you see the good in people and there's good in everybody. But at the same time, you can't let the people who aren't willing to do the work take up all of your energy and time at the expense of yourself and others. Okay. So I understand that the way we train men, the way we break men up in culture is frustrating. Okay. But I genuinely believe gender doesn't matter. Personally, for Brittany, it's not about their gender. It's about how we think gender matters, which creates this divide. And so men will think, well, to be a man, I have to be this way. And women will think to be a woman, I have to be this way. Instead of just thinking, but who are you outside of all of these things? Who are you outside of your gender? But that's so hard for people because they only know their worth by their gender. And that is something that I think we should deconstruct. All right.
Complaining about men and patriarchy, whether it's, just complaining about men in maybe a less articulate way, their grievances, real concerns, real anger, to the more dissertation, articulate unpacking and examination of patriarchy.
Hold on. Chad says, my experience with men is so different. It feels like I'm missing something here. Well, okay. So 2 things are happening, right? We all know different kinds of men. 2, your culture could be different. Or 3, you're ignoring the signs. Because either you're not actually paying attention to the misogyny that men are expressing, you just think boys being boys, or you are dealing with exceptional men, or in some capacity dealing with different things, right? It depends. It depends on who you're with. It depends on how you've been treated. But I know for myself, as somebody who grew up with 8 brothers and a father and all these uncles and stuff, the misogyny is there, even though I think they're all really good people in their own way, give or take a few of them. There is misogyny in my communities, especially in Middle Eastern community, girl. So I know for myself, when I really deconstruct my loved ones, I see how complicated it is. When I deconstruct my friends, I'm like, oh, there it is. When I deconstruct myself, I know there's misandry there that I have to constantly fight against because I've been raised in a community with men who take advantage of people, who ignore all of their mistakes while pointing out the mistakes of others, who leave women to do the burden and emotional care for their feelings without doing any of the work. And I see some men trying and some men doing better, but it is difficult because they're trained to not do that work, right? I'm going to sneeze. They're trained to not acknowledge a lot of their shortcomings, especially if you come from an immigrant background where it's like, what? I put food on the table. I put a roof over your head. What are you complaining about? It's difficult, right? Now, I will say, and I think this is hard for people to process because I think Khadijah just said it, like the bar is in hell, right? The bar is in hell. I think I know that to be true from my own lived experience when the fact that my partner, regardless of pronouns, my partner who's male presenting, when I expressed to them like 130 women committed unaliving in the Sudan because they didn't want to be raped, and all he does is hug me and says, I am so sorry. It is so hard to be a woman. And I'm like, thank you. But more than that, he is aware as a person who's male presenting all of the privileges that have been given to him, all the ways he's gotten away with things as a man, as a person who's perceived as a man, like, because of that perception, he's allowed to exist in the world that I could never exist in. I could never exist in the same way. Now, men are under threat in different ways from other men in different ways, of course. And men's issues exist. Men have issues. They have a lot of work they have to do. And boys need protection as much as anybody else. But, right, it is very nice to have somebody in your life who understands the differences between those lived experiences, all based off society's perception of us. Because they don't know us. They don't know our internal compasses. They don't know our internal thoughts. We are simply both being judged on how people perceive us. And that's what's scary about existing in the world with other people, is people are going to judge you on the perception.
Patriarchy and misogyny. There's a whole spectrum of language that women have been using for a while now about their fed upness with men, to the point where this movement coming from Korea, being here, is not new. It's like political lesbianism in a way. And that was something that was going on during second wave feminism. A woman without a man is a fish without a bicycle. We don't need them, girl. We never did. So what are we doing, right? I completely understand the perspective, the point of view. Y'all know I'm pansexual, so I date everywhere, and I can compare and contrast some notes between dating different genders and gender expressions. And even if somebody has a different gender expression and identity versus how they were socialized, how that contributes, it's wild. But I have some concerns. Remember earlier in the year when we were blocking all those celebrities? Yeah. What happened with that? I understood the sentiment. I thought it was a cool one. I thought it was maybe a little bit too focused on the celebrities and not as focused on like the power behind them and even the power behind politicians, the money behind it. But thought it was an interesting experiment. Thought it could be cool to see what happens with this and if people are really like done with idealizing celebrities, because talk about celebrities a lot on this channel. I talk about relationship to that. I don't think that they are better than me, and neither should you. You can appreciate their work and their talent and all of that and appreciate it all with a grain of salt. But either way, everyone was so ready to start blocking celebrities and running them off websites and commenting on everything that they post. Why are you doing this? Blah, 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 blah. What ended up happening was celebrities just either stopped engaging online completely or just completely ignored it. And eventually it lost steam and people stopped caring as much. And that's what I fear about this 4B movement. Even though I know that people are like, no, we're sticking to this. We're going to figure.
I don't think you should stick to this, for the record. I do think it's reactionary politics is bad. I don't think you should react to it. I don't think you should base your life around a man. I just want to make this abundantly clear that the 4B movement is inherently revolved around men. If you only are reacting to men's actions, why aren't you acting within your values? Men should never come into account when living your life. You should never think about a man. Listen to me when I say this. Never consider a man when discussing your own values with yourself. A man has zero input on how you think about yourself or your life. A woman has zero input. Non-binary people, anyone outside of yourself, zero input. I do not give an F what anyone outside of myself thinks about my own values. It's my values. They're my relationship with myself. Now, this is how I did my courting style with my partner. I put it all on the line. I said, here's my expectation. Here's how I expect you to be. Here's how I want my partner to be. Do you fit into this mold? And they went, here's how I am. Here's what I expect you to be. Here's how my life is going. Do you fit into this mold? And we clicked like a little shape that matched. We didn't force it. We didn't fight it. We didn't say, well, I already flew to Europe and you already flew to the States and we already met each other's families. Now we have to get married. We said, okay, now we've done all these things. Do we still want to get married? We were open to a breakup. We were ready to break up because we wanted to make sure, because both of us were independent on our own, had our own apartments, our own lives, our own jobs. We're completely satisfied being single. The last thing two independent people were about to do was be dependent on somebody that was going to make their life worse. So remember that every time you settle for a half-assed relationship so you're not lonely, that's a decision you made. But it's not one I recommend you do. You do you, but I don't recommend it. Do not do anything because a man. Do not do anything because if you want to live in a society and you want to adhere to that society and you want to serve that society in a sense where you sacrifice your own joy for that society, that's on you. I personally do not recommend doing this. I think this is the reason so many of us have trauma we haven't solved. It's the reason our communities are hurting the way they are. It's the reason men haven't stepped up, because y'all keep making their beds and brushing their teeth for them. So when I say this is reactionary, I mean it wouldn't have existed unless men were pissing you off. So it's reactionary. You should want to liberate your communities, if that's how you want to do it, or liberate yourself because it's a values thing, not because men are doing XYZ, in my opinion, right? Chad says, what's the difference between living as a single child-free woman and 4B? How is one fine and the other isn't? Because one is motivated as a reaction by men, from men, about men, and one is because you just don't want a kid and you're chilling. Okay? So it's the why. Why are you doing it? The 4B movement, as far as I understand it, is out of retaliation for men being incompatible with the people. What are we, incels now? Ladies, please focus. What are we, MGTOW? Why are you acting like the lonely, pathetic men that all have trauma and they need to go to therapy for? By making your life about, well, men go their own way. Women go their own way. Hello? Go to therapy, ladies. Okay, MGTOW, women go their own way. Ladies, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. Next, you're not going to take showers and talk about how women won't F you because you're not pretty enough. Come on. Well, I guess in this case, it'd be men. But okay, no. Absolutely not.
figure out ways to organize, because that was just celebrity gossip, whatever. This is like a domestic issue. This is people's lives. Yeah, but we forget about how
true. Also, being child free doesn't equal to being single or not straight. Same. My life. Hello, child free girl. Child free. Married and queer. Let's go.
Reactionary a lot of us can be. And I'm like it too. You know, in the immediate, I'm ready to go. I'm like, let's fight. And then if you don't have a plan, if you don't have like longevity to it, if you don't have ways to sustain something, it can't sustain itself. Eventually people get tired. Look at how many millions of less people turned out to vote this time, either because they were actively protesting, sitting.
I think because it doesn't revolve around people's values. I don't think people get tired. It's just not what they actually value. People live a life they value. And if it's a bad life, you value it. If it's a good life, you value it. If you vote, it's because you value it. You do what you think is a part of your values. That's what people do. So if you live a particular way, it's a part of your values. That's why they say when you vote for Trump, it's a part of your values. When you don't vote, it's a part of your values. And you can condemn it or not condemn it, right? It's up to you if your values match with somebody else. Do your values match with this person? That's what matters. And also, just an update to the voting stuff that happened. That 12 million voter number that keeps coming out that men didn't vote, it's not going to be true because votes are still being counted. Philip DeFranco covered it this morning. This is a little bit of misinformation that's going around from content creators I've seen, which, to be fair, all of us thought coming out of the election, but isn't true, that by the time all the counts are voted, it's going to be about 10 million more votes. So those 12 million votes that didn't show up this time around, but showed up for Biden, it's not going to be true after all the votes are counted. So just everybody relax, okay? The election went the way it was, and America decided, and that's America's values at the moment. If you don't want to date men with these values, valid. I wouldn't date women with these values either. Remember, lots of people of color, lots of queer people, enough of them are Trumpers. Have you ever seen the lesbian Trumpers on TikTok? Oh my God. The lesbian Trumpers on TikTok are so crazy. So again, I as a queer person, am not going to date a queer person that's pro-Trump, that doesn't see him for what he is. Okay, this is about values, not really about gender.
It out for whatever reasons, or they were just tired. People are just like, I'm politicaled out. And you can say it's a privilege to be tired and politicaled out. I agree. However, you might not think it's a privilege if you can't focus on that because you're busy with work and you're tired and you're stressed out and you're trying to make money.
Especially in a world where people like, there is something to that where it's a little privileged to think about your social rights over your food, water, shelter. But in other ways, if you're trans or black or gay or in a community that is going to not hire you because you're visibly disabled or you're something that they decide they want to discriminate against while pretending they're not, then your food, water, shelter is on the line. That's why social things could matter for you. Because for you and your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your food, water, and shelter is directly tied to your social. So you have to be very careful that when minorities say, like, I know this feels like a privilege for you as a white person, and it's true, maybe a white gay person who can pass for straight and pass for all these things, they're not at threat to lose their job. But if you're visibly disabled, if you're visibly something that these communities decide we're not going to employ you, then you run the risk of not meeting your basic needs, food, water, and shelter. So then it is a matter of the economy for you as much as it is a matter of social issues. All of these things matter. And in society, all of them should be met. In an ideal society, we would meet all of these needs of our pyramid. Okay, all the way to self-actualization. But we always get stuck on the food, water, shelter, and social identity stuff because we forget like this is a stepping stone to what we're actually should be aiming for, which is a self-actualization relationship, right?
Other thing that I want to point out is that the issues for a lot of Americans, reproductive rights was on the ballot, yes, but so was the economy and so was immigration. And it seemed like a lot of people were more concerned about those two. We're prioritizing those two. And if money is your priority, if making sure that your money is right because the inflation is wild, you might care a little bit less about somebody in X part of the states not being able to have abortion rights or whatever. And you could say, well, it affects those women too. It affects all women. It is a women's issue. Yes, girl. But poor women are also dealing with the economy as a women's issue. That's a women's issue. It's an all of us issue. It's not just women. But you know what I mean? Like everybody is not going to value the same politics equally. Unfortunately, that's just the reality that we live in. And as much as I would love to see a movement where the sisters are doing it for themselves and really sticking it to them, I think this has a good sentiment and frustration and steam behind it. But I think that there are things that we could learn from that aren't fictional, because I know a lot of people were pointing out that Lysistrata, that Greek comedy where the women decide to go on a strike to stop the men from going to war. There's a real example of women doing strikes and things and standing up for their things and getting their things. One of them is Iceland. They had a day where the ladies were just like, oh, we're just not you're going to see the issues of not caring about women and women's wages.
Right. I saw that actually. Very interesting way to make it clear. If I'm going to be honest, during lockdown, I think essential workers should have really protested their need to be there and said, if we're essential to this economy, you should pay us more.
Because we're not going to show up. And the thing that I also find interesting about this Icelandic strike for equal pay, because they got their pay gap, and if you watch the video, I'll link it below, you'll see they got their pay gap from around 40% difference to just under 10% difference now. Not obviously in one foul swoop, but this was one of the catalysts for that. They had women leaders from different sides of the political spectrum, people that were a bit more anarchist, people that were a bit more centrist, people that were a bit more conservative. And so how do you get them to all agree? But then this woman in her 70s, one of the centrists.
True. Kay says, this is why I think beliefs are at the root of our experience. I think your beliefs shape what you value, and you value something because of what you believe about. Like, literally, that's why I say, do you believe in a God? Do you believe in evolution? What do you believe you're doing here on the planet? Not just purpose meaning, but literally like evolutionarily, like how'd you get here? Because everything I believe about life is based off the belief that I'm an evolved animal. So I structure all of my values around that. If my belief changes, I could structure my values around that, which is why values change, because your belief around foundational understanding changes, right? Like, I might be a different person in 10 years, girls, but like my belief around that we're evolved animals is where I form my values from. Absolutely. That's why I always say you gotta know what you think you're doing on the planet, girl. Why are you here? You think you just got here? Well, how do you think you even got here as an animal species? Like, how do you think? This is why when people say, I believe in a God, it's how they vote. It's how they work their life. It's how they justify their bigotry, because they literally think God made them special and put them on a planet to exist with you and me, girl. This is what I'm saying. This is so important. I want you to really embody this. Really, 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 really embody this. Like, really, like, feel it in your gut, feel it in your whole body that, oh my gosh, what am I doing on the planet? How did I get here? How did you end up on this floating rock in space? Because this is going to help you understand how you do anything that you do. And then you got to find a partner that agrees with this reality. My partner and I agree on foundational reality. We believe the same thing about our reality of how we got here. We both believe in evolution. Woo. You know what I mean? We both believe in science. Woo. You know what I mean? But this is that's why if any of us, like, if I woke up one day and I was like, babe, I believe in God, my partner would be like, we have to go to the hospital. Because, like, that's really weird for you to believe that since we got married on this. So this is why I couldn't even imagine marrying somebody with different values than me, because my values stem from my belief.
Tris was like, just, you don't like the word strike? Call it a day off. And so the ladies were like, all right, work. We're not going to work at home, aka doing the second shift, the domestic labor. We're not going to work outside of the home. And you're going to see just how fundamental women are to this economy. So if that's for pay gaps, let's say, what is something that you can do for reproductive rights? What is a national kind of strike, you know, besides wearing the pussy hats? Like, what do we do beyond that, right? I'm not saying I have answers. I'm just saying if we want something like that to keep going, as opposed to we're online talking about it and it's gaining traction from a bunch of news articles and stuff, but like, it's not as organized, right? Like, even something like the Jane Collective, if you've never heard of that, I talked about it a bit in my abortion video when Roe v. Wade was first overturned, but you can learn about them. There's a documentary on Max, I believe, that talks about them as well. And there are lots of podcasts and stuff, but they were out here giving safe abortions to women, not legally. Not legally.
I didn't see nothing.
Doing their thing.
I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I don't even know about it.
Before Roe v. Wade. So there are ways to organize and get together. There are ways.
I also am pro-choice because I believe we're animals on a planet. I'm also a lot of things because I believe in this. I also understand that humans have violence as a part of their nature. I also radically accept that humans are going to human because I think we're evolved animals on the planet. I accept what we are from my perception, my belief. Then I move off of how do I make the world better with that as my foundational belief, right?
To protest and strike, so to speak. And if the ladies are like, we want to do a lady strike and you don't get none of this, I think also it would have been better to do it before the election. I'm just saying, I think if you guys want to do a getting ready.
Yeah, but what good is that going to do? Okay, so none of the men are going to get any of your bodies. Okay, now what? As the great Jordan Peterson would say, you want to be careful. These men, if you deny them, they'll kill you. Jordan Peterson has literally alluded and basically said that if you do not give men sex, they will women. But to be fair, in his defense, not that we do that often here, he also said if women aren't picking you, you're the problem. So, do with that what you will.
Ready to organize a 4-year strike before the next federal, even though there are other local elections that you could maybe do that, because, everything starts local.
Okay, so wait, I got distracted by Jordan Peterson slander. Okay, listen, we're not even slander. Okay, listen, what do we do? So this is why you can't make it about men. Who cares what men do? That's the problem. You care too much about men. And I know you do, girls, because I know you do, because you cry to me and you tell me. You tell me you can't even function without a man on your arm. Habibi, you can't even live your life without a man knowing what you're doing. You can't even hang out with your girlfriends without texting your man. You can't even breathe without making sure a man is validating you. Habibi, you're not ready for this. You're not even ready. You're not even ready. Deconstruct your desire to be validated by a thing we call man. And then we can talk about you owning your own agency when it comes to everything about yourself. Because the moment a man even goes slightly above that bar that's in hell, you're going to feel you're being treated like a princess. When the bar is still in hell, girl, it's just a little bit above. Him being a little bit above that bar in hell does not mean he's a high compatibility partner with you, girl.
But the local level, if there are protests in your area that y'all can do where you get a whole group of women together and y'all start protesting and that may be listen, post-nut clarity is a thing. And if you are going to the polls and you haven't had any and you are in a relationship with a woman and she not giving you none, or you're not dating or anything and all that stuff, I don't know if it might push you further to the extremist rightist. Maybe it'll push the gender gap further, or maybe it'll get some of y'all to listen, to care about my human rights as a fellow person on this earth. I don't know. But I think if there's a way, if y'all could have done this before the election, I think that would have been real. I'm kidding. I don't know if it would have changed outcomes, but either way, I'll link the things below so y'all can check some of those things out. I've learned to be cautious, not even cautiously optimistic, just cautious about online protest movement things that start.
I just think it's a bad movement. I don't think it's going to do what you want it to do. The movement should be have a radical relationship with yourself, not a fake one, not a girl boss fake one, not a superficial one, a real understanding of self. Be so happy and confident and joyful that the only people in your life contribute to that joy, with the exception of people we're doing emotional labor for, because we're born into families that are complicated and all of us are different. But in terms of choosing a partner to do life with, unless it's a high compatibility partner, absolutely not. Okay? Absolutely not. Maybe a casual, maybe a weekend fling, maybe something, but not the person you're going to do life with, not the person you're going to give your soul to, not the person you're going to do finances with, not the person you're going to build a life with. And ma'am, if you're worried about missing out on being a mother and being and again, this is speaking from my own experience. It's hard for me to relate at this point in my life because my values are so strict for me. If you think that you're willing to settle for a man just so you can have a baby, are you really thinking about that child? Or are you just thinking about yourself? Are you really thinking about that child and its future? If you just want to have a baby when you don't have the financial income, the stability, you don't have the ability to be truly independent, and you want to have a baby, are you thinking about that baby or yourself? Because I would really recommend in that moment, you prioritize that baby's health and longevity over yourself, but not at the expense of yourself. Babies aren't here to fulfill your dreams. Okay? They're their own people. So be careful when you replace that man in your life you never had with the baby you could have created. And I know this because I've nannied for families who are like this. I nannied for a mother, doctor, successful, lovely woman, very traumatized, and she had a baby because she couldn't find a man. And that baby will suffer because of it. I remember one day she came home from a long shift and the baby didn't acknowledge her right away, and she got her feelings hurt. That's trauma. That is trauma. Walking up a staircase, trying to say hi to your baby, and your baby's distracted by a toy because they didn't acknowledge you. You get your grown feelings hurt. So don't make babies in replacement for the men that you think you should have had. And don't settle for a man that's going to make you miserable for 50, 45 years, whatever it's going to be, just because. To put it into context, I was talking to my partner's grandfather the other day, and he was telling us he had been with his wife before she passed for over 60 years. And he misses her, of course, over 60 years. So before you do 60 years with somebody, okay, make sure it's the right somebody. And may my partner and I have 60 years. I'd be very old, but may we have 60 years. We could do it. We could get to 100. We could get to 95. We could do it. We could get to 100 together. Okay? 60 years. That's a big deal, girl. RL with the super chat, thank you so much, says, why are we forcing souls into existence with Trump? Why are we forcing souls into existence in general? But also you do you, right? All of humanity always does.
Not saying that it's all for nothing, but I think we're in a time where the internet is just a bit too algorithm centered and ad driven that like it's hard to expect the same sort of effects that we saw in the earlier days of social media with protest and organizing. I think it's maybe not fair to assume that we can use the internet the same way that we were even just 10, 15 years ago. But anyway, that's a whole other change for another point. What do y'all think? Are you withholding? Are you withholding? Are you going to not date, not have heterosexual marriage, not have heterosexual sex, not have children, get cat?
And the dilemma with this is like a movement like this is predicated on what? Other women? So what if you meet a guy who's the love of your life? Are you not supposed to be with him? How long do you remain celibate and away from men in order to fulfill this goal? When does it stop? When does it start? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the problem we're having with a movement like this is like, is this movement about other women? Because that's gross too. I don't do things for other people. I do things because it's within my values and I find people that share those values and I do it for the values. You know, I don't do it for the people. I do it for the values and I do it for people who have those shared values.
What are y'all doing? If you're a fella, are you scared? You should be. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But if you're a dude, I mean, if you're a dude on this channel, the chances that you voted for Trump are very slim. I'm not going to say it's impossible because 32 years on this earth, anything's possible. But the chances are quite slim. But yeah, what do y'all think? I'm so curious about this. Again, I'm not going to hold my breath and go, oh yeah, all the girls are going to be, by this time next year, America's birth rate's going to be so low, it's wild. Because the other thing logistically we have to think about is that America is a huge country. Like South Korea is smaller. Population-wise, yeah, 51 million. Canada has about 40 million. The United States is 300.
Damn, we are a big country. I forget how big of a country we are.
34 million people. You know how hard it is to get 150 million people to order?
Chat says, I think the point is supposed to be until men change. Girl, you're going to die before that happens, girl. If you're waiting for men as a whole to change, girl, you know this is a global pandemic. You know this is global. You know, girl, that's not going to happen in your lifetime. It's not going to happen for another 1,000 years, girl. That's crazy. Right? Crazy. Okay. Chad says, Brittany, I trust you. I'm not from the US, but people are acting like Trump being president is going to be another Holocaust. Do you think it will be that bad? Okay, I don't know how to compare anything to the Holocaust because I do not think people understand how bad the Holocaust was. Like with peace and love, I do not think you have any idea how actually horrific the Holocaust was. Like, I don't think people understand at what scale people died and in which way things happened. Like, I cannot compare anything to the Holocaust. It's so weird. Like it was so big. Like, I don't even understand how people don't make that correlation. I would say, is Trump's presidency going to be bad for lots of people? Yes. And I think including the people who voted for him. I think it's going to be very difficult on a lot of people. I think some people are going to be very, very happy. Okay, I think some people are going to be very happy, but I do think that it will be very bad for a lot of people, including a lot of the people who voted for him. And I do think they may have a hard time owning up to the fact that it's bad, but without blaming them, okay, you have to accept that people, even now, do you know what one of the most Googled things was after the election? How do I change my vote? And people were on TikTok saying, okay, I did not understand what was happening. I did not know so much about Trump before I voted for him. Like, can I redo my vote? And I'm like, no. And this is America. So maybe it needs to be this bad before people make it good again, because that's what happens, right? Chat says, I just said that because women are acting like they're going to be killed there, or at least the bubble rabbit hole I'm in. I do think women's civil rights, are already under threat. I do think as a woman, it's going to get very bad for you. And it's going to get bad for you politically, medically. Your services will be cut. And if you really want to build a movement that's worth building, stop worrying about men and start moving to better locations that support your civil rights. You will do anything but move. Move. You will do anything but relocate. You will do anything, my God. You will center a man around your life before you get up and get a new life. that at least gets you closer to your rights being recognized, because that makes a huge difference to the economy in ways you don't even understand, apparently. Let's go. Move places that fight for your rights, that don't throw doctors in jail for giving you abortion. Go to those liberal states with their high taxes and participate in the community. That's the point. Liberal states are expensive for a reason. That's why because we participate in the community. Okay? But also, you will have a lot of benefits. Okay? Go to places that make sense for your civil rights. Look it up, figure it out, and let those red states all be together in their little bubbles. But escape the bubble, girl. Pop the bubble. Pop the bubble. Okay? Go to hospitals where you feel represented. Go see doctors that care for you. I would be terrified to have a baby in an American hospital that wasn't vetted, that I didn't interview very aggressively the doctors who are going to be caring for my body. Be very careful going into just a random hospitals at the rate that Black women are dying in US hospitals. I would be very cautious. This is why I tell you, okay, whether you go a more natural route, maybe getting a doula and having a baby at home, or you have a doctor on call, make sure they care about your health. Whether they're your therapist, your doctor, your representative. Okay, make sure they care about your health. They really care about you. They have your shared values. Okay, conservatives do this, by the way. My mother did this her whole life. She only worked with doctors that were pro-life. So do the same. Work with doctors that are pro-choice. Work with doctors that can give you the care you need if something goes wrong. Okay, you want to know how conservatives stay so strong? They move to communities who are like them. My brother moved his whole family to a Catholic community so his kids could grow up in a bubble. Do the same thing for your kids. Do the same thing for yourselves. Move to communities that represent you. That's what conservatives are doing. That's why they have such strong movements, because they are actually moving to communities so their kids can grow up in the same belief system, right? Do the same for your children to the best of your ability. Do the same thing for yourselves. Move to places where when you pay tax, you know it's actually going towards your healthcare to the best of your ability, right? Easier said than done. But man, isn't it a lot easier than just denying all of men into your bedroom? And also, if you move to more liberal states, you'll meet more liberal men. You'll have a higher probability of meeting men who actually share your values. Because the men who don't, they live in those flyover states. A lot of them, not everybody. Okay? The men you're probably not hoping to date, those Trump voters, why would you only date in an area with Trump voters? Okay, now I'm so sorry. We're going to do this. Are you ready? So now we've heard from Khadijah, who's, non-binary and queer and pansexual and Black and all the great things. And then we're going to go to, I'm so sorry, Brett Cooper. Now we're going to watch Brett Cooper's perspective. So we're hopping into the conservative bubble. Okay. We're going to see what they think about the 4B movement.
As we often say that politics is downstream from culture, but sometimes culture ends up being downstream from politics. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, women across the country said that they were swearing off casuals. They would be more careful with the men they were sleeping with. They were going to get on birth control as a rebellion, not really realizing that that is kind of the solution to literally everyone's problems. Less casual sex means fewer babies that you want to abort, happier women, healthier America. And
nice little reverse psychology there. Okay. Oh, I see what she's doing. She's like, yes, women are having less sex. Oh, Brett Cooper, they're still having sex, just not with men.
now, with Trump winning the election in America and half of American women believing that they are being stripped of their rights, they have decided to rebel yet again. And at first, this maybe seemed healthy, but then it took a turn for the worse. And we really need to address the 48% of white women who didn't vote for Trump, because I do not think they are okay. Before we dive into this,
wait, Discord says, doesn't that long game here just assure that people who are fine with conservative men end up reproducing, and that's more of the population in the long term? In some capacity, yes. In some capacity, obviously, religious people, conservative people, they are more likely to have babies. That's always been the case, though, which is why I say all of civilization will find its way. People are always having babies. It just might not be you. So yes, if you wanted the world to be different, you would have to have and raise babies to be different. right? But like, I'm not going to do it and you're not going to do it. So you might as well enjoy your 70 years until we all die. But if you want to keep having babies in this world, you better get them ready. Okay? You better get them ready. Actually, true, Emily. Actually, wait, counter. Emily said conservatives will give birth to liberals like myself. That's true. 5 of my mom's 10 kids really ended up liberal at the end. So to be honest, even if those conservatives have kids, they're going to be gay. Good point, actually. Good point. You know, I'm one of them, girl. Good point. Actually, I take it back. Keep having your babies, conservatives. I always bless them when they're gay when I see them. You know, every time I see a little baby, I'm like, may the gay bless you, you know, just for good measure.
The story, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the comment section channel if you've not already, and of course, ring that notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date on all of our episodes. So first of all, I just want to set the scene for you guys.
Oh yeah, even Elon Musk's daughter is like trans and like thinking about moving out of America because of how shit of a dad he is, you know? Shout out to Elon Musk and his horrible father skills.
Because this is what these women were acting like the day after the election. Just watch. So she captions this, 10 out of 10, highly recommend finding a quiet place in nature and screaming into the abyss today. And here's another.
I'm not speaking to men today. If a man speaks to me, I'm not speaking back.
Great. Excellent.
This might be hard to believe, but are you aware that nobody gives a shit?
So obviously they are not doing well in the slightest. But you know what? Like I said in my episode.
Yes, 2 people. Congratulations.
About why I voted for Trump. They're angry.
The rapist. Brett Cooper, God forbid, votes for the rapist. You know, multiple women have accused Trump of rape. Just one ended up going through civil court. But you know, multiple women, including his ex-wife, accused him of rape and physical abuse.
I understand. They wanted Kamala to win. It sucks when your candidate does not win. We all went through that in 2020. They are being dramatic, emotional women, per usual. We'll just let it blow over and then we'll get back to business. But then they kept going. And next, because they were so angry at men, they started posting about how they wanted to, you know, decenter the patriarchy from their lives. And if men were going to vote to take away their rights to have abortions, which again is not happening, then they were once again swearing off. Wow, what a revolutionary idea.
I've decided that cigarettes don't count today, and I honestly might go get a tattoo. But I also have decided that for the next 4 years, I am going to abstain from schmex with men. As a woman, my bodily autonomy matters, and this is my way to exercise sovereignty over that. So I highly encourage any other women that are single, and care about progressing women's rights and still fighting for our bodily autonomy, to do the same. If you need...
Yeah, it's so interesting, huh? Chat says dramatic, emotional women. What do you call January 6th except drama? Bro, the way men get away with being emotional AF, breaking down on streams, but the moment a woman shows a little bit of emotion, they're like, women. This is misogyny. Misogyny is when men do it, it's reasonable, and when women do it, it's emotional. This is misogyny. That's what that is.
Need somebody to cuddle or hold your hand,
Oops,
or
I'm blocking
give
her
you a
face.
kiss, I bet you one of your girlfriends would do it, okay?
True.
You don't even have to really be gay.
True.
Okay? It's okay
True.
to have...
Let's go, queen. Guys, don't have sex with men when you can have sex with your girlfriends, you know?
a lot of platonic love for the next 4 years.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that
Chat says, what's wrong with being dramatic and emotional? Hey, it's fun. But when you're being serious, less necessary. Like being dramatic and emotional is great unless you're being serious. Then I think like we don't have time for it. But also emotion is important and being dramatic is fun, girl. We love being sassy and dramatic.
lesbianism is about to absolutely skyrocket. They are the real ones that are profiting off of this. But anyway, here is another one.
All I have to say is good luck getting laid. Especially in Florida.
And I said this in a previous episode, but women are going around screeching this online. Not every man is only considered with getting laid. So good luck to you. It's probably better that you're staying abstinent. That is a good thing for you mentally. Not all men care. This girl...
Wait. Chat says, Elon Musk banned Stephen King from Twitter for calling him the first lady. What fragile masculinity is that? Wait a second. Banned him from the platform or banned him from his personal account? Because banning him from his personal account is valid. Banning him from the platform is crazy. Which one? Because like, you know what I'm saying? I'm all about banning people on your personal accounts. Ban them all. From the platform? He banned him from the platform? Stop. That is so funny. That is so funny. Oh my God. Oh my God. Stop. I am gagged. Oh. Ooh, okay. Ooh. Oh, that's funny. Oh, pathetic.
Posted another video that was very similar. She said, if men won't respect our bodies, they don't get access to our bodies. Okay, this is why this is actually a good thing. You're abstaining from sex because you do not want to risk getting pregnant with somebody that you're not ready to start a family with. You don't want to sleep with a man who does not respect your body. Ladies, like, keep it up. This is fantastic. This is exactly what you should be doing. I know that you think that this is some sort of protest.
Yo, the way she kind of get under your skin, though. The way she kind of gets under your skin, bro, with peace and love. Brett is such a sweetheart. You know what I mean? Like, she'd probably cry if somebody looked at her a little bit mean. She seems like a sweet girl, very accomplished. You know what I'm saying? But also, with peace and love, like the way men rule this woman's life. Do not be like Brett Cooper. This is what I'm saying. The 4B movement is centering men. Don't be like Brett Cooper. Don't center men in your life. Pick yourself, your own consciousness, your own values.
But come on, you are literally helping everyone. Some guy tweeted and said, women on here are threatening to stop having casual sex and warning us that they'll start making sure their partners align with their values. How is the entire culture fixing it?
Okay, hold on. My bubble keeps getting, my little picture keeps getting in the way. Women on here are threatening to stop having casual sex and warning us they'll start making sure their partner aligns with their values. How is this entire culture fixing itself from one event? I can't explain it. I mean, that is what you should have been doing in the first place. That's the point. You should have been doing that in the first place. I agree with them. You should have been only with people, but I've been there with you. I've dated people that had different values than me because I kept thinking, oh, well, like they're different from me and we have different values and we'll figure it out. But obviously, as I've gotten older, obviously that is the goal. The goal is to be with people that align with you. Now, here's the threat to women that Brett isn't going to mention because they never do. These men are going to get angry. They might even get violent with you. It's already happened before. It might happen again. And what's scary, okay, what's actually scary is that when men are denied sex, they get violent. And when women are denied sex, they become cat ladies or they pick up crocheting as they should. So these men who are going to feel entitled to your body, they're the ones you should be watching out for. Even Jordan Peterson has said this. Men who get rejected by women, who don't fit the mold of masculinity, who aren't being chosen by these women, they will turn to violence. But Jordan Peterson also said, which I'll say again, that if women aren't picking you, you're also the problem. So be careful and be ready, but also be open-minded that the gender isn't what matters. Okay? Be open-minded to the fact that when you're interacting with somebody, how much does their gender matter? Yes, if you're heterosexual and you're into the opposite sex, gender is going to play a role for you. But remember that when you're dealing with a man, you're dealing with a person who happens to be a man. So treat them with the dignity and treat them with the same dignity you would expect someone to treat you. And it wouldn't be because you're a woman. I hope to God you do not sit in your living room and think I need to be treated a certain way because I'm a woman. Now, of course, a lot of these heterosexual women do fall into those roles. A lot of women do think because I'm a woman, you should open a door. Because I'm a woman, you should pay for the first date. See, I don't base my life around gender like that. But if you do, then you're going to have to expect that same energy from these men. And you're going to have to decide if that's really how humans should be. I don't think it is. I don't think people should have to do these things. I don't think it should be gendered. I don't think doing chores should be gendered or making money should be gendered. I don't think like child rearing should be gendered in that sense. Like I think we should be open-minded to individuals who are capable of doing many things. So again, it's hard for me as a queer person who's pansexual to really understand the plight of straight people that aren't open to other genders or other experiences. But even if I was straight and I was with only the opposite sex partners, I would still want to look at them as people first and foremost, and then take into account how their gender has played a role in their conditioning.
Itself from this one event, I can't explain it. Another person commented and said, every few years, the feminists reinvent traditional values and act like they discovered electricity. I 100% agree. But the thing is, this never sticks. Another person commented and said, am I the only one who remembers 2016? This has happened before, and the women did not, in fact, fix themselves. Yeah, they tried this in 2016, and after the high of the attention wore off and everyone moved on, they went back to normal. They tried after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and guess what? That did not stick either. And they're doing this so that they can get attention and feel that moral superiority that they so desperately require. And you might be thinking right now, okay, Brett, it's ending.
Yes. A human, that might be a human, like a universal human experience. Validation seeking. That might be a human, universal experience. Actually, it's not probably, but
Here, they're going to do this. They'll move on in a few months, but no.
Well, think again!
I mean, maybe they realize that they can't do the same thing they've done 2 other times before. So now they're actually adopting something that we have talked about in previous episodes, which is the Korean 4B movement. And this is why I was so excited to do this episode, because I love when things overlap and we can do like a callback to another episode. But basically, TLDR, feminism is rampant in South Korea. Their birth rate is plummeting. Nobody's getting married. Nobody's having babies. And feminists really made this worse by creating the 4B movement, which means no sex with men, no dating, no marriage, and no children. And many of these women make that their full-time job, so they can also add no money to the list. They literally mooch off of their fathers, which just makes it even more comical. Anyway, women in America have adopted this movement. Here's a few headlines. No dating, no marriage, no children. Interest grows in the 4B movement to swear off men. Boycott men. South Korea's 4B movement gains traction in the US after Trump's win.
Wait. Stop. Chat says grape has never been legal, or am I wrong? You're wrong. I don't know if you're wrong. Rape has absolutely been legal. Absolutely. It's legal right now in some states. There are child marriages happening right now in the United States. Marital wasn't even considered illegal, right, in this century. So no, rape was absolutely legalized. I mean, I would argue it's still legal right now.
But the thing is, guys, American women couldn't just stop there. They needed to feel special. They needed to do something that was unique and just a little bit different. So they decided to start shaving their heads to put their own spin on this movement. Just watch.
Just woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this.
Okay, just FYI, I just want to say this. Okay, speaking for myself, when you're dysregulated, don't make permanent decisions. Don't make big decisions like cutting off your hair, dyeing your hair, getting a tattoo. I understand the impulse. In my 20s, believe me, that every time I was doing radical things, I was a lot of the time, not every time, but a lot of the time I was dysregulated. Okay, a breakup, buzzed my hair off. A bad thing happened at work, colored my hair. It felt like a sense of control. Okay, you're just gaining control out of the dysregulation. This is why I say, wait a second. Okay, I know you have a lot of feelings. I know you want to make a decision. Don't do it. Okay, wait a second. And this is a universal experience of dysregulation. Everyone who's dysregulated, who makes a decision in that moment, you're probably going to justify it later, but maybe you wouldn't do it as much if you were regulated. It's not about regret, because who cares? Hair grow back, who cares? Okay, tattoos, who cares? But ask yourself, would I do this if I was regulated? Ask yourself, would I do this if I was calm? And then don't do it if you wouldn't do it if you were calm. To the best of your ability, and you won't be perfect at it. I'm still not perfect at things, but I'm just letting you know.
My favorite thing is that she keeps trying and it never works.
Hold on. Chat says, what do you mean child is legal? Aren't conservatives so crazy about protecting kids? How is this legal? I'm so confused. Conservatives pretend to care about children's rights, but they absolutely live in places that allow child marriages to occur in many ways. Even California, being a liberal state, has allowed child marriages to occur under the age of 18. When we say things like, I thought conservatives cared about kids, well, sure. In the same way Democrats say they care about the working class. People say a lot of things. So we have to have conversations about the nuance of how things go through in terms of policy. Policy is what you're looking at. Right? Not just the platforms they stand on, but that's why conservatives are such hypocrites. Catholics will say they care about children, but I've seen Catholics victim blame the children that these priests don't get it twisted. Oh, did the kids lie? Did they say something? The Catholic Church is the first people to say, we care about children's rights when your kids are trans, but we're going to protect these predator priests and nuns. So be very careful about people who make a big stink of saying a lot of good things but never have actions to follow. Chat saying, is it a big deal if you cut your hair? I think if you mean it in the context of this conversation, most people get their hair cut between 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. So if you're just going in for your normal trim, no, it's when you do something that are different. It's when you do something. Okay, it's always paying attention to the details. Why are you doing something? Is it separate from your personality in some way, right? Like think about why you're doing it. That's what matters. Like this, I'm cutting my hair, opting the 4B movement. Like do things politically, cut your hair politically, do things politically, but just make sure you're regulated, right? Chat says, I didn't know this is legal. That's crazy. I'm actually shocked to hear this. Have a bubble pop, girl. Have a bubble pop. Because all of the things that you think the world is sitting here protecting, they're not doing it in the way that you think, right? They're not like, I think people want to believe that everyone cares about protecting children. But believe it or not, a lot of adults will do everything they can at the expense of children. We see it with TikTok parents. We see it with policy. We see it with family members that hide crimes. We see it with the way that men will raise babies and then marry them. Okay? So with peace and love, like we have these ideas that the world cares about kids. Iraq right now wants to lower the age of child marriage to 9. 9. Get your shit together. Now you'll remember my grandma was married at 12, between 12 and who knows? The way we all tell the stories in our family are wrong, so I could get the dates wrong. I was always told my grandma was married at 12. Okay, that's what I was always told. My other grandma, 15. My aunties, 15, 16. Okay, so remember that I come from a background not too long ago where child marriage was normalized. And now Iraq wants to make it done. It's done. Did Iraq official? Yeah, great. So you know what I mean? Y'all can't keep your hands off kids. And these are coming from traditional religious bubbles.
Being skinny, being hot, being all the things that the
Hey, that's totally cringe, bro. Listen how women center their life around men so embarrassingly. You're embarrassing. Was that the only reason you were doing it? To get a man? Get a hobby, girls. Get a hobby.
Those of you ladies who have the internalized misogyny required to do what you did.
Thank you.
Minorities who are so scared of a woman in power that you'd
girl, internalized misogyny is only grooming for the validation of men. Isn't that what you're doing right now?
rather cozy up to the white man just in case some crumbs fall off his plate.
So that's the only
sure.
reason I voted for Trump then, because I have internalized misogyny.
Yes, you are internalized misogyny, Brett. You voted for a rape. You voted for a rape to deny. If she wouldn't have been the chosen one, if I had anybody, it wouldn't have been her. She wouldn't have been the chosen one. Do we forget that's what he said? Okay, you want to know who you voted for, girl? Get ready with me while we listen to our 47th president talk about his own daughter.
Said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
By the way, your daughter.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous.
It's
She's tall. She's almost 6 feet tall.
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
Donald Trump repeatedly points out how hot his daughter is, saying last year in a Rolling Stone article, "Yeah, she's really something, and what a beauty, that one. If I weren't happily married and, you know, her father."
My daughter, Ivanka.
Yeah.
She's 6 feet tall. She's got the best body.
Yeah, she's hot.
Said that.
I'm so afraid of a woman of color being in office and I want some crumbs from Donald Trump. Give me a break. You're not even trying to understand why 52% of women just like you voted for Donald Trump. You don't even want to think about it. You just want to shave your head and move on and say F this, which she continues to do throughout the entire video until the end.
Stop having sex with men. Stop talking to men. Divorce your husbands. Leave your boyfriends. Leave.
Honestly, though, you should consider divorcing your husbands if they're homophobes and transphobes, because they're probably not the love of your life. I'm just saying. Is the love of your life a transphobe? Is the love of your life a homophobe? Is the love of your life misogynistic? Is that the love of your life? Like, everyone's misogynistic from a man's perspective if they haven't deconstructed, and maybe even women. Actually, I would argue that everyone's misogynistic because we're born into a misogynistic world. But is that the person who's the love of your life? Someone who's not going to deconstruct if you've already deconstructed is one thing. If you're also like a Brett Cooper, obviously, like Brett Cooper should stay with her husband. They're the same, you know, but if you are deconstructing, then your partner better be deconstructing too.
How did we go from Britney Spears shaving her head to that being like, oh my gosh, she's really having a mental breakdown, to now this being some kind of female empowerment rallying cry? Did we forget what happened 20 years ago and what we all thought about it? Like, how has this changed so quickly? Now, I know that there is a real psychological term for this, but this entire thing just screams, I'm unhappy, I'm insecure, and I want other people to feel as unhappy and insecure as I do. Like, she's literally urging women to leave their husbands, to leave their boyfriends, to be single.
It's true that she's not offering you much. You should be single and happy the way I was in my life, living her best life, doing what I want to do every day, girl. Okay? Like, I just want to say, you shouldn't be angry and bitter about men. You shouldn't even think about them. Don't even think about them. Think about you. What do you want to do today, girl? What's the hobby you want to get good at? What kind of humans do you want to hang around? But if you're always thinking like, will a man love me if I'm the way I am? Who cares? Do you like you? Do you have a healthy relationship with yourself?
This is not a woman who wants the best for other women. A woman that genuinely wants the best for other women would be
Okay. Neither of these women want the best thing for women or people. Brett Cooper absolutely doesn't have your best interest in mind. She doesn't even have her own best interest in mind. This woman on TikTok shaving her hair, she needs to go to therapy. 100%. Okay? Go to therapy. Because you're not happy, girl. You're not joyful. I'm joyful, and I'm telling you right now, it's the best thing I ever made. The best decision I ever made. The best decision I ever made was to figure out who I was and to have a relationship with that person. Her values, her hobbies, her interests. Who am I? If the whole world disappeared around me, what would I do with my life? And not in a literal sense, guys, please focus. In literally a sense of you only come home to yourself. What do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be a servant? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be an avid reader? How do you want to live out your 70 years on earth, right? So remember, like, I don't think personally, in my opinion, unless you are this way, like, it's the same way people kept saying Hila should leave Ethan. Hila and Ethan are one of the best couples I've ever seen. Incredibly high compatibility. Their values are the same. They absolutely see eye to eye, and they make a great relationship. They have a great relationship because they think the same way. So for people to say Hila shouldn't be with Ethan, I think you're forgetting that Hila agrees with Ethan. So if you're that kind of a couple, as long as you match, you're going to be compatible. If you have two white nationalists that are dating, they're going to be a power couple, girl. Be a power couple. Not with a white nationalist, but if you're a white nationalist, you should date another white nationalist. You see how that works? You know what I'm saying? Like, you should pick people that share your values. What happened in the great divorce of our age, right? What happened was women left their husbands because they didn't marry people they had the same values as. And they were sick of their men talking down to them, and they left. The reason divorce rates are so high is because people keep settling time and time again because they don't know why they're getting married. They don't know why they're doing anything they do. So think about what you're doing and why you do it. And say, is that really the reason I should be doing this?
Come with me to shave my head and deconstruct internalized patriarchy. Great.
I think it's important too. I went through a shave my head as a signal. I didn't want men to keep hitting on me, and I did. I shaved my head so men would stop hitting on me at one point. It was great. My partner actually saw photos of me recently. They're like, wow, you used to have like such a lesbian haircut. I was like, thank you. I did. I absolutely had a lesbian haircut, so men would stop hitting on me. It didn't work, but I remember making a video about it. It's now probably private, but it is private. It's private. But I made a video about that. Like, my hair was political, but now it's not. Now my hair is just cute because I want it to be, girl. But it did work, by the way. Men will f dead bodies. They don't give a f about your haircut. Just a reminder, men will f children. They don't give a f about your haircuts, ladies. Stop shaving off your head for men.
You're so brave. Stunning and brave. I mean, girl bossing to the max. When this is the only thing we have left to control ourselves. You're so dramatic. And then what is this person in the back hiding your face? You're cosplaying as oppressed. You're hiding somebody's face. You're sitting there.
Brett Cooper is so infuriating. Listen, the people she's picking on, they need to go to therapy. 100%. But so does Brett Cooper, right? Like, they need to go to therapy. But Brett doesn't understand these people. She's just doing this for clickbait, and so conservatives feel validated in hating the left. And the left, like all these people, you should go to therapy for shaving your head because of a man. It's one thing to shave your head over politics. It's one thing to shave it over men. And even then, I don't think you should do it for anything.
You're so somber. There are literally
like anything outside of yourself.
Women across the world who are getting married off at 9 years old. Those are not women, girls that are getting married off to middle-aged men at 9 years old. Women who are literally publicly...
Yes, and it's happening in the U.S. as well. That's why I want conservatives to be very serious about the child marriages that are happening here. Oh, they're so mature for their age. Oh, they're so mature. Everyone is just so mature for their age. No. Like the same conservatives that are so mad about what's happening in Iraq won't throw that same shade for these 19-year-olds dating 45-year-olds. Throw the same shade.
Executed because they show their hair in public. Women who cannot get medical attention. Women who cannot go to school. And you're saying...
And all of these problems are happening here in the States. Don't get it twisted. See, Brett Cooper is not going to acknowledge the women who died from ectopic pregnancies. She's not going to acknowledge the women that died at the hands of conservative doctors. She's not going to acknowledge the deaths of women that are happening around hospitals here in America because it doesn't fit her narrative. Feminists and progressives are calling out politics around the world globally. We are calling out the tragedy that happened in the Sudan. We are calling out the bullshit that happened here in the States. And we are calling out the bullshit that's happening in Iraq. We are doing the work, and we are absolutely doing it fair in that sense. Conservatives are not. Conservatives are not willing to say your policy is killing women in America. Women who want to have babies.
Sitting here on your little TikTok app, shaving your head because you want to seem like you're oppressed because that gives your life value. That is what all of this is. Why are all of these middle-aged women, again, like this seriously screams, I need to feel important and relevant again, and I need to make other women, especially young women, feel as miserable as me.
My question is, would you consider boob surgery as something done for yourself or something done for your male gaze? It depends on the context. Plastic surgery could be done for society, for men, or it could be done for yourself. You should never do it for other people. You should do it for yourself. Like, I think a lot of people do it for a lot of reasons. I think if you only get plastic surgery so people validate you, I think that's a mistake. I think if you get plastic surgery because you really just think it looks better and you're vibing, do it, girl. Like, do it. But if you're only doing it for the validation of other people, I think that's not great. No, if you're also doing it out of survival, there are things you could do out of survival that could make sense, right? So you have to decide, but it's never black or white. It depends on the person getting the surgery. Why do people groom? A lot of people groom just for society. A lot of people groom for themselves. It just depends. It just depends on the person.
So many stunning, beautiful women all over this same app are literally celebrating Trump's win. They're celebrating their vote for Trump. Like, these videos are literally all over my For You page. This was right after he won. Here's another one. This absolutely beautiful, adorable mom. Like, she's precious. This is the other side of the internet right now. White women specifically moved plus 11 points for Trump.
Wow, you don't say. White women voted for Trump more. You don't say. White women. Wow, I am so shocked that white women voted for Trump. I am shocked.
So all of this head shaving, all of this drama, it is a desperate cope. The Valley Girl on X put it well when she said, you live in the land of the free with privileges that you take for granted. You are not.
Look, all Americans are privileged compared to the other parts of the world. Give or take a few countries. Of course, we're the superpower. But within the bubble of America, there are people that are not privileged compared to others at the top. Okay? So if you span out on the globe, of course, Americans are more privileged than anybody else around the world, obviously. But if you zoom into the American bubble, which you have to do because we're Americans, then you have to see, do you have the rights? Do you have the capabilities? Are you being discriminated against? There's a lot of oppression happening in America because this country was founded on oppression. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted, okay? The problem with Brett Cooper and all these women that she showed is that they are not oppressed in a way that makes them need to advocate for their rights in a different capacity, right? Because if you're rich enough, if you have accessibility, if you have the right networking, then some of these policy changes just won't affect your family, right? Like, some of these policy changes just won't impact your life the way that it will impact other people's. And so of course you're going to vote, you're going to prioritize other things during the vote. A lot of people do. And a lot of these white women are conservative. A lot of them don't see Trump as a rapist. Look, all the women that I've talked to, not very many, mostly family, who are voting for Trump or did vote for Trump, don't believe he's a rapist. They don't believe the women. Okay, they don't think his felonies are real, which, by the way, I'm anti-prisons and I think felons pay tax and they should be able to run. And just because you're a felon doesn't mean you're a bad person. But if you're a felon who denies Even though you're guilty, like Trump does, that's a problem. If you've raped somebody and you're denying it, even though you've been convicted, that's bullshit. Like if you're innocent, you're innocent. And bad convictions happen in this country. They do. They happen in this country. But, and I think this is important, and I think, even Asman said it himself, if there's one accusation, maybe it's a lie. But if there's six, then there's probably a problem. And with Trump, there's a lot. Okay, there's enough. Same with Bill Cosby. Remember when Bill Cosby's accusers came out, over 20 plus women? And people said, these women just want to be famous. I can't name one of those women. So you might think they just want to be famous. And yeah, sure. Have people been falsely accused? Absolutely. It's called being a liar. Have people lied in this country? Absolutely. So you have to decide, is this a liar or is this a person telling her truth? And if you're biased and you're prejudiced and you think every woman who accuses someone of something is lying, that's your sexism showing. Because I bet if a man said it, you would believe him. Because you think women are more comfortable in a way to lie than men are, which is so ironic. Since men brag about lying on these apps all the time, they literally teach other men how to lie. From Andrew Tate, right, to serial cheaters like Destiny, right, to bullshit people like Myron. All these men will literally brag. Sneeko, all these people you see, all these Trump voters who say they lie to women about being Trump voters just to sleep with them. Okay. Oh, damn. Thank you for the correction. Ari says Cosby was accused by over 60 women. Holy shit. My bad. My bad, girl. I thought it was literally my bad, girl. I thought it was 20. Are you kidding me? 20 plus 60. Man is guilty. He also admitted it. So remember when we're having these conversations, yes, it's not as black and white, but I think it's clear who the predator is. Remember how we covered Toby Turner the other day? And he was accused of rape, which I do think he did, but I wouldn't know. I wasn't there. But more than that, the things that he was accused of, that he admitted to on stream, should have been enough for people to not pick him, no matter how much he cries or begs people to forgive him. Unless he admits he stalked Jaclyn Glenn, he abused people in his sphere, he cheated on people, he was bad to his friends. Like, we can't even start to meet him where he's at. You can't meet men who only cry and never do any work. You can't meet them where they're at because they're not going to do any of the work. They're going to expect you to do all of it. Trust me. After all these years, Toby has only ever denied accusations against him. That's not a man. You can meet him where he's at. And that's my point. It's never enough for some people. It will never be enough for some people. The same way they hide your grandpas, they hide your daddies, and they hide your uncles. The same way they invite predators to your get-togethers, it will never be enough for these people. And you know what they'll say? You just seem to have such a bad attitude about them. What did they ever do to you? Did they do anything to you? Well, how do you know they did something to somebody else? But do not try to meet these men. Do not try to do it for them. And do not do it for the women that are protecting them either. Because you best believe women are protecting these predators.
Do you know what real oppression is? Women in Afghanistan have no voice. They are forbidden from going to school.
Okay, just a reminder, this is a conservative narrative. That because if you want, okay. Oppression exists on a spectrum. Oppression, say it with me, exists on a spectrum. Yes, we are not as oppressed in that particular way as women in Afghanistan who can't even speak to one another. That doesn't mean we exist without oppression. And remember that every time a man says he feels like oppressed. Remember that every time a white man says the most oppressed group in America is a white man. Remember that when you see Trump advocating for reparations for not black people, but for white people. Okay? So just remember, what is happening in Afghanistan is misogyny and it's bullshit. What's happening in Iraq is misogyny and it's bullshit. What's happening in the United States is misogyny and it's bullshit. It's all bullshit. And if we keep fighting, and we have to keep fighting, okay, for our rights, it's because they are looking for every way to oppress us, including but not limited to voting for a president.
Meanwhile, some liberals in America are shaving their heads to make a point. Did you think about donating that hair to Locks of Love? Do you realize that you're trivializing the experiences of women with cancer?
Nah. Don't play this oppression of politics with me, bro. That's the problem with these women. They're like, you didn't do it right, so we don't believe you. They could never do it right. You were never going to do it good enough for these people. Because they already decided, guys, he literally got convicted in a civil court. It wasn't enough. He admitted to sexually harassing women. He bragged about how hot his own daughter was. It's never enough for these people.
cancer and alopecia. You rail against the system, yet it's because of capitalism and your right to free speech that you can vent on social media and even profit from it. Real feminists do not stand for this. Women who truly care about rights don't stand for this. The 4B movement is a mockery of the real horrors that women worldwide—
And then they'll play this game of like, real feminism doesn't do this. Real feminists, I have that. My mom says this all the time to me. Why aren't conservative women considered real feminists? Because you vote against your own self-interest constantly. You're literally voting for a— What do you mean? You don't think women deserve equal rights. You're willing to take away women's reproductive rights at every turn. Why can't conservative women be considered feminists? Yeah, sure. In the same way TERFs are considered feminists. Sure, you can be a feminist, but you are actively voting against the interest of women.
Other than us seeing your video and going, ooh, okay, that is a bit much, maybe laughing at it, did not impact us. Men do not care. We don't care.
Women aren't a monolith just because it didn't impact. See how it has to revolve around her? See how because it didn't impact her life, it doesn't matter? See how it's all about her? Yes, not for you. Women aren't a monolith. They're not talking about you. You're obviously benefiting from a misogynistic president and a misogynistic probably husband. Like, what are you talking about? You are suffering from internalized misogyny. Like, that's what unless it revolves around anybody, see how people only care if it revolves around them?
But you know who does care? Well, like this poster just said, the women around the world who have lost their hair, whether that be to cancer or alopecia, or maybe it's fallen out due to the stress in their lives, that is who you've impacted. You are so focused on being—
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Shaving your head does not impact people with alopecia. Shaving your head does not impact people with cancer. That's not how that works. Did you hear Blair? Blair, oh my God, stop it. What's her name? Brett. Did you hear Brett? She goes, you shaving your head impacts people with cancer and alopecia. What the in the gaslighting is this?
Martyrs and making yourself ugly to men, that you haven't stopped to think about what that means for men who can't have the hair that you're buzzing off. Are you saying that they are unattractive and that men don't like them because they're bald? I mean,
okay, actually, men literally leave women who are sick, and men do think women who are bald aren't pretty. That's literally a stereotype. It is, don't fuck with me, Brett. Go ahead and shave off your head and see if people think you're sexy. Like, that is literally just true of men. The struggle bald women have to find men who find them attractive if they're naturally bald is very difficult. And when they do, that's wonderful because they're different from most men. It's like she lives in a completely different reality. Oh, her bubble is so specific, and it's a lie. I would love to see half the women. Go ahead, conservatives. Everybody start shaving your head as a fashion statement, okay? And tell me how many men aren't going to say, like, I like women with long hair, though. I actually prefer women more feminine, which is fine, by the way. Like, it's fine to like women with longer hair. But yes, that's why a political hair movement is different, because you are saying to these men, like, don't find me attractive. And by the way, they probably won't want to bring you home, but they'll still have sex with you. There's a reason why Republicans have an aesthetic. There's a reason why conservatives have an aesthetic. And there's a reason why liberals have theirs, because we're signaling to one another our in-group. Right? What group are we a part of? Also, these women can't donate their hair if it's dyed. Trying to pretend like, oh, these women could have donated their hair. They can't. If it's dyed hair, you can't donate it.
We'll let these women speak for themselves.
I am not part of this trend. Stop.
Okay, good for you. I'm not talking about you either, girl. Damn. And I don't mean the derogatory sense. I mean it in the gay sense, but maybe I should stop using it in that sense too. Listen. We're not talking about you. It doesn't revolve around you. Why does everyone think everything revolves around them?
You say that you're shaving your head so that men won't want you. But does that mean that men wouldn't want women that have struggled with hair loss?
Yes, it is what that means. Yes. Ask black women. Ask women of color. Ask women who have had short hair their whole fucking life, and men won't date them because they're not feminine enough. Yes, that is what we're saying.
Should we not be able to feel loved by a man? Should men not wanna?
That is not what we're saying, but that is what they're hearing.
Because we're bald. Y'all are making it seem like being bald is a bad thing, and it's really aggravating me. People make fun of bald people on a daily basis, yet don't want to be made fun of for being overweight, ugly, etc. I have
They don't want to be made fun of for being ugly. It was white women on white women crime this whole time, by the way.
Love ourselves again, allowing others to love us and actually—
Where are all the black women? Where are all the Asian women? Where's the representation, bro? Has Brett showed one person of color, bro?
Feeling loved by others. Y'all are undoing the work that bald women have worked so hard on. Per usual, the party of political correctness and inclusivity and moral superiority finds a way to belittle and trash a group of people that actually deserves love and deserves—
Oh, so they deserve love because their baldness wasn't a choice. But if your baldness is a choice, you don't deserve love.
Conclusion so that they can feel important. And that's really all this is. You want attention and you want to feel important. So here you go. Here's 15 minutes of attention for you.
So exhausting. It's so exhausting, I think, dealing with different bubbles, but you have to know your bubble. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know, what you're going through. You have to know who's on your side. Everything Brett Cooper said is basic conservative talking points. That's why the audience eats it up, because it's no original thought, just talking points. And then she conflates things that aren't analogous.
In my head, in real life I'm in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool.